Coming your way on today's edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports, I'm Chase Sr. 3 stories that we want to dissect and get to. Could the Eagles trade a quarterback, either Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee? The Philadelphia Eagles getting great news in the lead up to their preseason finale against the Vikings on Saturday. And we're going to take a look at some really fascinating numbers which show the Vic Fangio effect on the defensive side of the football has been real for Philadelphia. Speaking of that preseason game, week 3, it's the last tune-up for the Birds. We have a programming alert. We're doing another watch party right here on this show. We'll be live on Eagles Now at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. Wake up with us. Let's watch some Eagles football together. We'll do an hour pregame show taking a look at this top storylines, top positional battles, marquee players to watch during the game, live play-by-play, audience interaction, and instant reaction. And then after the game, a post-game show with all of my thoughts with what transpired during that game against Minnesota. Story number 1. Could the Philadelphia Eagles realistically trade either Tanner McKee or Kenny Pickett? This is a very popular storyline among NFL fans right now because the fan bases look at the Philadelphia Eagles and they say, the Birds have Jalen Hurts. He's obviously their franchise quarterback. And they have a solid QB2 with either Pickett or McKee, leaving one to be expendable. I have a lot of thoughts on this as these rumors have really started to pick up, especially after the injury that was season-ending for J.J. McCarthy with the Minnesota Vikings and other teams either needing a backup or having question marks with their starters with a team like the Las Vegas Raiders. So the thought here is that the QB position in the National Football League, this goes without saying, is obviously very important. And there are still teams with quarterback needs, either with their starters or their backups. And if you don't have quality depth at the quarterback position, you're screwed. Because if QB1 goes down, the season that you have worked so valiantly for kind of goes down the drain. And other teams look at the Eagles and they say, well, if we want to bring in Kenny Pickett, he's very experienced in this league. He's done some good things from time to time. And even though he struggled in the preseason with Philadelphia, and Tanner McKee, in my opinion, has beat him out, even though Philadelphia won't name McKee QB2, and has done some more impressive things as compared to Pickett, Pickett does have a lot of experience in this league. He has started 24 games. So that is worthy of a season and a half of starting experience. And then other teams also look at Tanner McKee and they say, this guy is throwing with timing, touch, accuracy, and power toward the sideline. Those are big league throws. He looks comfortable in the pocket when things get crowded. He has decent mobility. He has really good size. He can drive that ball down the numbers, down the sideline. He can make any throw on the field. And they look at Tanner McKee as a player who can become something down the road with some really intriguing skills. And so that could make one of those players a trade candidate for Philadelphia because other teams in need of a quarterback might fork over a nice little package of either picks and or a player for either Pickett or McKee. And CBS Sports put together the most likely players to get traded in the lead up to the 2024 season, and they had Kenny Pickett on that list. And they have the Chargers and the Vikings as the top trade destinations for Kenny Pickett. Here's what CBS Sports had to say. Even after a relatively underwhelming summer, the Eagles would surely prefer to keep Pickett's NFL experience on board as insurance for Jalen Hurts. The ex-Steelers starter has never enjoyed a better supporting cast. That said, the Eagles are always in the business of collecting and flipping quarterbacks, and third-stringer Tanner McKee has shown enough poise to warrant number 2 consideration in back-to-back years. Pickett is local to the Philadelphia area. He's from New Jersey, by the way, but he'd almost certainly sign off on a chance to get right back into a starting gig, adding to the appeal of another move. Now, there are reasons why the Vikings and Chargers have been listed. As I said, J.J. McCarthy out for the year. That job, the number 1 role, going to go to Sam Darnold, at least as of right now. And he's obviously had his ups and downs throughout his NFL career. And then Justin Herbert has been injured. He did return to practice, but the backup quarterback situation with the Chargers is not great. What I think happens, I think the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, that contingent leading this organization, they like their quarterback room. And I think that Philadelphia ends up holding on to both. This is an organization that has said publicly, and we have seen this play out before our very eyes, that they're a quarterback factory, they value the quarterback position, and Philadelphia, with what we've seen, has a long backup quarterback history. In my lifetime, how many backups have we seen win huge games with massive implications for this organization? From Coy Detmer to A.J. Feely to Jeff Garcia to Nick Foles winning a Super Bowl to Michael Vick. The Eagles invested in Gardner Minshew. They drafted Jalen Hurts second overall an offseason after they paid Carson Wentz. So they will invest and be very aggressive in doing so with diverting resources to the quarterback position. And I think they want these three quarterbacks on this team because you simply don't know what's going to happen. They also look at this Eagles team and they say, we're stacked with talent. We're loaded. If Jalen Hurts were to go down, we have two options that we think that we can win with. With Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee, we deal one away. We take away from that important depth. And especially pertaining to Tanner McKee, I don't think the Eagles trade him away in any instance unless a team offered like a second or a third. And a team would do that if they really thought that Tanner McKee could be a starter in this league. Philadelphia sees the upside with Tanner McKee, what he can become as a young developmental quarterback who's shown some really impressive flashes in back-to-back preseasons. We've been talking about that here on this show the last 2 years. Tanner McKee is also under contract for the next 3 years. And with Kenny Pickett, consider what the Eagles gave up to bring him in. I do want to pop up this poll question here because I do want to hear from the audience. Who should be QB2? Type KP for Kenny Pickett, TM for Tanner McKee. I put this question on our community tab of our YouTube channel a few days ago, and the results were fascinating. 86% Tanner McKee, 14% Kenny Pickett on 10,000 votes. Now you can let me know in the comment section. So that was story number one. Could the Eagles trade a quarterback? A lot of chatter and buzz there, given some injuries and uncertainties at the quarterback spot for other teams across the NFL. Coming up next, Eagles got some great news, and we're going to do a deep dive into how the Vic Fangio effect has been real so far throughout preseason and training camp. Our sponsor for today's show is Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the game with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it is just you against the numbers, not a computer. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you'll watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. I also really like the specials that Prize Picks offers. For instance, 1 Caleb Williams passing yard, that's right, 1, gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right, only 1 gets you an automatic win. So you get 4 weeks of that in September. Our selections that we like looking ahead to the upcoming football season: Patrick Mahomes, less than 4,299.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, more than that number on your screen. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have more than 1,000 yards rushing for Philadelphia this year. So his more or less is only at 999.5. I would smash that if I were you. And then Garrett Wilson, with Aaron Rodgers healthy, I think he has a monster year. We like the more than 90.5 receptions. So daily fantasy sports made easy. Play the more or less game. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. Philadelphia Eagles have gotten some great news in the lead up to their preseason finale against Minnesota. Cooper DeJean said on Wednesday that he is going to make his professional debut, and he is going to play in that game against the Vikings. And what I want to see from Cooper DeJean, a few things. Number one, he broke his leg last year at Iowa, and then in the lead up to training camp, suffered that hamstring injury. So of the utmost importance for me, I want to see him stay healthy. Cooper DeJean is also looked at as a freak athlete. Vertical bounce, 40-yard dash speed, a white corner, which obviously is very rare. Does that athleticism translate? And where do the Eagles play him? Because he could play all around the field, as we're about to talk about. And then as he made his return to team drills over this past week, and he made his return to practice last week in that joint practice against New England when he was doing some individual stuff, he's been getting some return reps. Did the Eagles try him out as a returner against Minnesota? I just want to see those reps to see how he looks, and if he looks good, could he be a weapon, special teams-wise, for this Eagles team here in 2024? At Iowa last year, he was utilized as a chess piece on that defense for Kirk Ferentz. 28 snaps around the defensive line, 23 snaps out of the slot. That's primarily where the Eagles have had him. He played outside corner the most, 630 snaps there. He was in the box 23 snaps. And for those of you who think he's a safety, he did only line up deep once. So doesn't have a lot of experience doing that. So far with the Eagles, he has gotten a bulk of his snaps on the inside, playing slot corner with the second team defense. Occasionally, he has played with the first team defense on the inside. With that second team defense from time to time, he also has gotten some outside corner reps, but the Eagles are so deep at that cornerback spot. Story number 3. Let's talk Vic Fangio here. I understand it's the preseason. You don't want to make too much of it, but so far throughout training camp, so far throughout the preseason, the Vic Fangio effect has been on display. And I've said this a couple of times here on the show, but I think one of the biggest reasons why I think the Eagles can get back to NFC contention, the coaching is going to be better. They're also a motivated team. But from a coaching standpoint, obviously they have all this talent on both sides of the football. Last year, Sean Desai was in over his skis, and he had 1 year of play calling experience. Brian Johnson had never called plays as an offensive coordinator in the National Football League. At times, he seemed to be overwhelmed, and Nick Sirianni's vanilla offensive system, 30-second and pre-snap motion, didn't do him any favors. Vic Fangio has seen everything that you can see in the NFL. He has coached multiple defensive position groups, and when you think about some of the best defensive minds of this generation, Vic Fangio's fingerprints are all around the NFL because his scheme is trusted. His scheme has been proven to work, and I just think his experience is going to do wonders for this Eagles team. So far, throughout training camp, the Eagles have had longer, more physical practices. Vic Fangio got in the ear of Nick Sirianni. This is proven and said, we need to have longer, more physical practices, especially with how the Eagles finished last year and how soft they were, especially as a defense. Also, what have we seen the first 2 preseason games? The Eagles' defensive starters have played in both, whereas the Eagles' offensive starters have not played in either game. According to Elliott Shore-Parks, going into the final day of training camp on Wednesday, August 21st, given longer practices, more intense practices, the Eagles had 83 more team reps. That is like a game and a quarter if the game is moving quickly. So that's a lot of reps right there. More reps than what the Eagles were getting last year. And their practices on average have been about 20 minutes longer this year as compared to last year. And how about these results in the preseason with Vic Fangio as this team's defensive coordinator? Through 2 games, the Eagles have allowed 323 total yards. Opponents are 8 of 27 on third down conversions. The Eagles were terrible in that department last year, historically bad. And the Eagles have only allowed 22 first downs and 26 total points. Vic Fangio has also dialed up the pressure, and the Eagles have blitzed a lot more. Those numbers, very, very impressive. And I know it's only the preseason, but hopefully that is a sign of things to come. And Vic Fangio being seasoned, Vic Fangio being experienced, him being I don't take your bullshit, we're going to practice and we're going to practice hard. I'm going to put you in a position to succeed, old school football mind. I think the Eagles have been beneficiaries of that so far in the lead up to the 2024 campaign. Be sure to give me a follow on X at Chase_Senior. Be sure to give me a follow on Instagram at Chase_Senior. In addition to the long form content here on the show, I also put out a lot of short form content on my social media pages.